Hello, thanks for watching. Today I'm telling a personal story about music, technology, friends, and reflections.
Everybody has a story. I'm sure you do.
I'm going to start about 45 years ago. That's when I started working on an IBM System 32 mini computer. It was the size of a small desk, had a 5 megabyte hard drive, 16K of RAM, and a 6-line by 40 character screen. Oh yes, and a built-in printer. Working on it let me save enough money to buy a Fender Rhodes electric piano and my first synthesizer, an ARP Axe. The ARP Axe was a basic analog synthesizer that used a single voltage-controlled oscillator produced tone. It only played one note at a time and had to be programmed on the fly, no memory for settings. Thinking I really knew my stuff, in 1977 I quit college, loaded up my GMC Suburban with my music gear and drove to Los Angeles. In LA, I started working briefly on another System 32 and played keyboards in a band named Tombstone. I had the good fortune to meet a few members of one of my favorite bands, Little Feat. The color photo is from 2013. It shows me with Paul Barrére and Fred Tackett, both of Little Feat. Paul passed in 2019. The other photos are from 1979. That's me with the black cowboy hat and ARP Axe. The guitar player without a beard is Paul Graham from Tombstone. He passed about 2016. And the other guitar player is Lowell George. Lowell was a co-founder of Little Feat. He passed while on his solo tour in 1979. Lowell and Fred especially were encouraging when I was in LA. Tombstone split up at the end of 1979 and I moved back to Boston. I continued to work on an IBM mini computer and put out my first solo album, Out of the Blue, in 1986. The fellow with the long hair and beard is me sitting next to my Hammond organ and Wurlitzer electric piano. The rotating Leslie speaker is behind me. The bass player on Out of the Blue was Dean Groves. Dean was a few years ahead of me in high school, and he also went to pursue his musical dreams in California. I still have some old recordings of Dean and me jamming with Fred Tackett back in '78. The synthesizer shown is a Yamaha DX7. It was one of the first polyphonic digital synthesizers. I used it on my second solo album. Here are a few antiques. The black and white photo shows me in the early 90s. You may recognize the IBM PC and the Apple Macintosh SE30. Behind those computers is a console for the IBM mini computer, a System 36. The cables extended from the ceiling are early networking, way before Wi-Fi. I first got on the internet in '92, back when email was the killer app. Also pictured are a couple of CDs. The picture of the bird head was for my second solo release, Long Time. I used sequencing software on my Mac to record and play back synthesizers, drum machines, and an early sampler called a Kurzweil 250 RMX. This was in the early days of MIDI, the musical instrument digital interface. The Kurzweil was a remarkable beast. It was 5 rack spaces high, amp depth, and weighed over 50 pounds. But it gave me a realistic acoustic piano sound. Many musicians helped with Long Time, including members of Gary Shane and the Free Radicals. Here's Gary Shane's Love is the Liquor of Life CD. I'm the tall person on the cover. Gary wears the hat. Eric Colosi played guitar on both CDs. He passed in 2020. Working with technology took me and my family to Illinois in 1996. The black computer shown is an IBM AS400 mini computer. It was the successor to the System 36 and had a SQL database built into the operating system. The other computer is a Sun workstation. I had a similar Sun server on my desk that I used to serve websites and email. When my family and I moved to Illinois, it was the early days of the World Wide Web. My wife Amy and I had started an email listserv for Little Feat fans in 1995, and we also began the official Little Feat website. The screenshot is a version of the site from 1999. The young lady in the sunglasses is my wife, Amy. Next to her is Bill Payne, keyboard player and co-founder of Little Feat. The fellow playing with the children is Richie Hayward. He was drummer for Little Feat. He passed in 2010. Oh my goodness, many adventures with music and technology while I was in the Midwest, both live and in the studio. The woman holding the mic is Deb Lister. In 1999, Deb sang on 3 songs I wrote that featured Little Feat's Paul Barrére on slide guitar. We recorded at Mark Rubel's studio in Champaign, Illinois. We recorded digitally, but onto a tape format called ADAT. And that's Mark with me in front of a recording console. Mark is an outstanding audio engineer. His knowledge, skill, humor, and humility made everyone he worked with better. A few years later, I brought another band into Mark's studio, Knights of Crisis. By then, the technology advanced so we could record direct to hard drive. The bass player for Knights of Crisis was Jim Dugan. He was also a psychology professor. Jim passed in 2010. This was also the dawn of cloud services on the internet. You can still find Knights of Crisis on YouTube and most music streaming services. Well, technology work brought me to upstate South Carolina in 2008. In 2009, I joined the St. Anthony of Padua Gospel Choir. Stanton Greggs, in the vest, does a remarkable job leading the choir. We've created 2 CDs as fundraiser. The first, Rough Side, was out in 2011. The second, The Lord is My Light, was out in 2014. Both CDs were recorded in the church using microphones connected by a digital audio interface to a Macintosh computer. In 2013, I started an internet radio show, the Little Feat Radio Show. It featured music of Little Feat and friends. The show's technology has changed over the years from live audio to video podcast with occasional live shows. An Apple iPad helps with the live radio shows. I also use it for practice and live music performance. With the exception of 2020, I've been performing quite a bit in upstate South Carolina. My main keyboard is a Roland VR09. It has sampled sounds, synthesizer sounds, great organ tones, and it weighs less than 7 pounds. Red Miller and the Moore was a band formed from the gospel choir band. We played classic rock and soul music to benefit the St. Anthony School. We put this project on hold when one of our lead singers, Ken Holloway, got sick. Unfortunately, Ken passed in 2018. Rock and Roll Reunion is another band I've played in since 2013. We play classic rock, beach, and blues. Tom Crabtree is the leader, and he's already booked gigs for this summer. Finally, I've played with David Smith and Bob Sinclair, another psychology professor, since 2017. We play songs by artists such as Bob Dylan, The Grateful Dead, Van Morrison, and of course, Little Feat. So that brings us up to date on my personal history of music and technology. I look forward to the next steps in the journey. Just a few more pictures to close. Of course, I'm grateful for the patience of Amy Good, my partner for over 40 years. The little guy at the keyboard is our grandson Callum. That was our first visit to Guitar Center. Hanging by the water cooler is my oldest daughter Emily, my son Reed, and Fred Tackett with me. And the young lady with the purple in her hair is my daughter Kira. She's shown with Howard Burke, Little Feat sound engineer. And finally, my little granddaughter Pippa.
Good girl.
Thank you once again. I appreciate your attention. I hope to hear some of your story at some point in the future. Thanks again.
Can you tell?